Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MitsuTimes podcast. My guest today is Mitch. He is the owner and driver of a whole fleet of cool Mitsubishis. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Good. Well, I think we should just get right into it, Mitch, because we got a lot to talk about. Give us a little introduction and tell the listeners about yourself.
Well, I started out with cars from a young age. My father was into Volkswagens, and he's got quite the little assortment of it, from Baja Bugs to other Beetles and motors and Trans and things like that. So that's probably where the spark started. And then we originally raced motocross, so that definitely fueled the whole motorsports part when I was a kid. And then as I got older, I branched off into mountain biking, freeride, and then that turned into a profession for 15, 18 years, something like that. And now it's just, with age comes a cage, right? So just moving on to the next exciting thing.
I like it. Well, you said that your father was into VWs. How did Mitsubishi become your platform of choice?
I originally really liked, I was into the Supras and GTRs. You can blame the Fast and the Furious. I think I was like 11 or 12 when that came out. And we watched it one night at my grandmother's house, of all places. And it just kind of sparked something in me. And then it was actually Gran Turismo 5. A buddy of mine actually had a 2008 MR Evo 10. He was a realtor, and he loved it because it had 4 doors, and he could drive his clients around, but it still hauled, and could do a bunch of things. And he wrapped that one around a pole, so he bought another one. Now I got to drive that one in 2011, I think it was 11 or 12. I got to take it for a little spin because he'd always promised me I could drive it. And from there, I was like, okay, yeah, these things are pretty sweet. And then I just remember being on Gran Turismo with a buddy. We used to have to play co-op, and we'd be bottom screen, or top screen, bottom screen. And that was always the car we went to that we would race each other on. It was all things equal. And yeah, I still have the save file somewhere. The wife didn't believe me, and I had to pull it up when we first got the first one. I was like, see, I've been playing this for like years. So in a weird way, it kind of manifested that way.
Yeah, nice.
But we got the original Mitsubishi in 2019, which is Evo 10 MR 2011. And it started all out because the wife got rear-ended in her Mazda 3. And I wasn't really like, I didn't care for that thing. I changed a few little things here and there on it, but it was like, that's your car. I don't want to deal with it. I hate how it drives. It's got electric steering. It feels like crap to me. So when she got rear-ended, she just one day out of the blue was like, babe, I think we should get a race car. And I instantly was like, yeah, well, what's the budget? How much am I allowed to spend here? And she was like, well, I think we both have good jobs and this and that. And she's like, I don't see 60 being an unreasonable number. I was like, all right. 2008 GTRs came out in Canada. They were $69,000. So I should be able to find one for like 40, 50, I think. Yeah, no, those things have held their value. So anyone who bought one of those is selling them at retail still, even with 100,000 miles on them. So then I was looking through the ads and things, looking at those, and she's like, well, babe, we might start a family. We're going to need 4 doors, something we can put the kids in, something a little more family reasonable. So I was like, well, that leaves literally 2 cars, WRX or an Evo. And well, the Subarus are out of the question. And yeah, it was just like 2 days later, I was scrolling through Auto Trader, and I was like, damn it, I found the car. And we went and saw it, and 2 days later, it was sitting in the garage.
Wow. Didn't take long to bring her home.
No, she was excited too. So it was, it happened really quick. It was just like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this then. And then it's just kind of snowballed from there.
So how did you go from there to track racing? Was it the Gran Turismo again kind of influencing things?
Well, I think it was part of the past with like the whole motocrossing and being a top athlete on the stage and the competitive edge kind of thing. It just needed something. Originally, we started out autocrossing it for the first year, and she came a few times, and it was cool and all, but like it was hard for me to justify being there all day for 8 50-second runs. I was like, okay. And then I wanted to do some modifications to the car. And she was like, well, no, we kind of got to keep it kind of stock, keep it reliable, this and that, right? And I was like, okay. And then one day, just on Craigslist, I was scrolling through, and there was a rally out there, and it had some Evo parts done to it. And this kid had taken on this project car that he got in way, way over his head. And he had fitted some parts to it, and he had a wide body kit, and half of it was installed, and half of it was drilled. It was kind of a mess. And then, so I went and looked at it one day. I was like, okay, yeah, okay. And then, so one thing led to another, and went and picked it up, and I lowballed the guy, and he was like, yep, just take it. And he had a set of wheels, the Yankees on some R888Rs, and I was like, well, perfect. I could got some track tires to come with me. I'm like, what do you want for the wheels? He's like, I don't know, $400. I was like, damn it, I have to buy it. I know I have to buy Rally Art in order to buy these wheels. Okay. And then just kind of snowballed from there, and then that became a kind of a winter project, putting it together in some sort of form. He had like the wastegate solenoid wired backwards. He had the rear brake lines on the front, the front's on the rear. Body panels didn't line up. There was stuff missing. Originally, the idea was I was just going to try and make it stock and maybe sell it, but then it just kind of went, oh, well, this is a little bit too far gone, so we'll just go from there, and it just led one thing to another. So I went to my first time attack event in 2020 during COVID, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
I like it. Well, Mitch, I was very surprised messaging you on Facebook. Most people have one project car. You said that you have 2 Evo 10s and 2 Rally Arts. How did that happen?
Well, the last Rally Art's the newest edition. So that one, my plan is, it's kind of like a trickle-down effect, because the platforms are so similar that a lot of things just bolt over. So, like, my car gets the newest and greatest or whatever, then the wife's car gets a few little things, and so I got all these stock parts laying around. So I was like, oh, and my father needs a new car because he's been driving around this 95 Saturn SL2 thing that's just, it's loud, it's old, it's always had a little issue here and there. I was like, well, maybe you need a Rally Art in your life, and he didn't say no. So I was like, well, okay. So pick that one up for a steal. It needs transmission put into it, but I got enough of those laying around that it's just going to be kind of like a deposit of all the old parts. So like, it'll be a fun little car, but it'll be like my C car, I guess, in a way, if I ever blow up enough of them and need one for whatever event. And then the other Evo X was actually in a small, I don't know if it was a fender, it got put in a ditch, and it was not hard, but enough to like bend the body panels and a few things, and broke a couple suspension arms, but everything else is intact and in place. So it's been sitting on the side of the house on blocks. It's had a few things robbed from it, but like, the more originally I wanted to build try my hand at rally driving. A good friend of mine, he's stepped into the rally world as of late after moving on from mountain biking. He's won a couple ARA tips. Now he's over in Europe testing his feet over there.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I read through the rule book, and it's like, you can't run the SST because that's what's it's got in it. So I'd have to switch it to 5-speed and do a bunch of things to it. But now that they've changed the rule book in ARA, I can run it in whatever transmission came in the car. So it's open, but as of late, that seems like a big adventure and definitely cost prohibitive. So I'm thinking it might get turned into a little endurance car, run some of the local races around here, just as a seat turner with a couple of buddies. There's a couple League, Lucky Dog, and Champ Car. They have a couple events nearby, so get some serious seat time in there and just turn it way down, I guess, because you got to maintain your minimum lap time.
So 4 SST cars total. That's a lot to handle.
People say they're made of glass, but I actually haven't had any issues other than something that's been my fault with them. Like, I've been running 500 plus wheel in the Time Attack Rally Art for 2 years full time, and then here and there the first year when I was sorting it out. It just comes down to torque management. Torque's what kills the clutches, right? Is if you can maintain 360 foot-pounds from when the turbo spools till redline, you can make 500 horsepower, because horsepower is just torque over time. You can push it way up top if you have the turbo and the sporting mods to handle it. So it's okay. I've never had any issues with like overheating. Like, I do have a few extra circuits and a bigger cooler and things, but It's never been like I've never had the transmission slow down while on track, and I've had it out 20-minute sessions, 120 Fahrenheit temps, and it's actually the engine oil that heats up first. So
That's really cool.
yeah, but saying that it did blow out a clutch on the last time attack in the last session last year, so there is a bunch of parts sitting on the shelf ready to go into the box to take a little bit more abuse, that's for sure. Got some jacks, billet clutch forks, and a big 14-plate clutch for it. So she'll be able to handle whatever I probably want to whatever I want to toss at it for at least a while.
Yeah, sure. Well, Mitch, is it your primary Evo that gets driven the most out of all these cars?
It's probably the wife's that gets the most. It doubles as like a B car, and for a long time we were actually dailying it till both the kids decided that they wanted to destroy the back. Chips and applesauce and this and that. And her mother, so my mother-in-law, actually gave us her 2009 Forester base model thing, and it had a leaking head gasket. It's a Subaru, so fixed that up, did some work to that, and it's staying as it is, just stock. It's just a Subaru. It's speed limited based off of aero performance because it makes 86 horsepower to the ground, so it only does 140 kilometers an hour. She's not quick. You have to think whenever you pull out in traffic, like, is there really enough speed? I got no power to pull anything. It moves the kids around. They like it. They can see it. It's got a sunroof. It's just a family wagon now.
Got everything that you need for the family.
Exactly. You can put things in the back, and if the kids want to throw an applesauce or toss a milk around and it spills, I'm like, whatever. I don't care about this one. Like, this is what it's for. So, yeah.
Out of all 4 cars, which one gives you the most headaches?
Now, the most headaches right now it's the wife's, but I just did a round of mods on it and I can't seem to get it to idle. I think it's the O2 sensor that's gone because I built a new downpipe for it. But mine's given me some headaches, but nothing too serious for the most part. Like I've had a couple wastegates actuators snap on me, and it's only ever when I'm out of track that's a long ways away. But thankfully I've been carrying a spare lately. But usually it's something of my own doing, whether I rebuilt like the wiring harness for the engine bay in the rally art. And in the technical documents for the wiring pinout, there's 2 blue wires that go to the MAF sensor. One's gray on blue and the other one's blue on gray, and I got them mixed up so the car wouldn't run. But after some troubleshooting and rechecking wires and what pin goes to where, it was like, okay, just 2 wires to switch around, so not the end of the world. But that was probably the biggest headache. The only time I've ever missed an event for working on it is Mitsubishi used the speed connector for the air conditioner and the starter relay. And I mixed those up because I had the front end of the car off, and when I was putting it back together, it wouldn't start, and I couldn't get the starter to click. And yeah, I ended up missing the event, and sure enough, the next day I'm like, oh, these things are the same, and switching around, and it fired up like nothing had happened. Other than that, it's been really reliable.
I guess it's good to know that they're still doing that, because on the 2G DSM, the air conditioner plug and the starter or the coil pack plug are the same shape and size and almost in the same location, so they're easy to mix up.
No, definitely. Yeah. On the CYs and the CZ chassis, the 2 plugs are really close to each other too, right? And the air conditioning is removed from my car, so it's just easy to overlook. But now that's all been stripped out, so nothing to go wrong there. There's just one connector now.
Well, Mitch, I'm a big fan of the rally out, but it gets overlooked a lot. What made you want to get your hands on one and eventually race one?
Well, it happened more by chance because it was like, okay, they have the same motor, and you look at it and you start digging into it. You're like, oh, the chassis is kind of the same. And you start getting more into it. You're like, the front end is 100% the same. And then you start really digging into it, and there's nothing on that car that isn't from an Evo at some point. Like the rear diff's out of the 9. It's the same diff. The rear suspension geometry is Evo 3. So you start digging through it. They just kind of put it as a parts bin, and like, we got spare this and that, and it just kind of came out, I guess. But it's got the same front end and all that. Like if you look at my car, if you go from the middle of rear doors forwards, there's nothing on it that isn't an Evo. And then on the back, or like an Evo 10, and then from the back, it's still Evo 9 and 3. So it's just kind of a hodgepodge. I'm not saying like there's an advantage or a disadvantage to the rear suspension on an Evo, but the Evo 3 kicked ass when it was around, so it's not a bad platform to start from. And on the plus side, with all the pickup points in the rear being a little bit different, I can run a CY chassis. So if I bin it into a wall, I can pick up a base Lancer for $1,500 with a blown motor or a trans or anything and swap it all over. I'm not looking for a $1,000 Evo chassis or a whole nother car, right? So that's one big advantage on that point, where like the chassis are plentiful. It's not hard to find one. Not that I'm planning on binning it into a wall at any time. That's been trying to avoid that for a while.
It's not in the plans.
No, it's definitely not a planned operation.
Well, are people surprised, Mitch, when you talk to them about taking this rally art to the track and you say, "Oh, it's not an Evo; it's actually a rally art"?
Every single person thinks it's a Evo from when they first look at it. I go, well, no, it's got a round gas cap. It's actually just a base model chassis that's got a bunch of nice stuff that the factory shipped it with. So can't really complain on Mitsu's from there, because they ship the motor. It's the same from valve cover to the pan. They just changed the turbo. Single scroll, the dual scroll, and it came with a smaller one. Otherwise, if you had two sitting side by side, you're not going to tell the difference. And then a lot of the Evo parts and stuff transfers over. And strangely, some things like the exhausts don't transfer over because the chassis are somehow a little bit different. Like I have an Evo exhaust system on it right now, the Tomei tie exhaust. It was on the wife's originally. The rear tailpipe sticks out past the bumper, but on the rally art, for some reason, it sits in like 2 inches. Not really sure where the length difference is. It might be in the bumper or whatnot, but yeah, there seems to be a little bit of a difference in the back there. But otherwise, yeah, it's the same car. They just sold the same number of units, and then I guess their plan was to make it like a more fun daily driven car, because they shipped it without the S Sport and a few other little things and detuned in power. But if you look at the base of them, the platform from the base is almost the same.
So they're pretty much aesthetically the same, but how do they feel behind the wheel?
They are a little bit different. Like the wife's on track is easier to drive. I will say that the AYC does make a bit of a difference. A lot of big track guys on their Evo 10s do end up swapping it out for a mechanical rear diff. The AYC definitely has a little bit more of a, I don't want to say a tame, but you can feel it working. You can turn it off, but I don't think it's fully off on all scenarios. I think there's a little bit behind it. And her car I can feel it wanting to rotate a little bit more. My car, sometimes it wants to push the front end, which is inherent with the chassis, with the engine being so far front. It's hard to move. It's really easy to pull weight out of the rear of the car when you're trying with the track build. Pulling weight out of the front's been a lot more of a challenge. Hand in hand, they handle the same. Now from factory, the rally art comes with a much slower rack. That was the first thing I noticed when I drove it. I remember driving down the street after I picked it up and drove it off from the guy's place, and I turned the corner and I meant to go into the first lane on the right, and it went like a lane and a half. I was like, oh my god, this thing doesn't turn, because you got to like hand over hand. The Evo, you're just two hands on the wheel and you drive it around. So I was like, oh, that's the first thing. So that was the first thing I changed out when I got it. And then it starts snowballing, and you're like, oh, the power steering pumps aren't the same. It gets a hard spot because you're moving more fluid and the pump's not big enough. So then let's solve that.
Well, Mitch, would you say that there are situations where the rally art actually outshines the Evo 10?
If I had to pick one, like, I'm not saying from like what I have built, I would probably pick the rally art again. From the beginning, like, because unless you're going to trail your Evo and all that, the rally art seats fold down. You have all that trunk space. You have all that. You can bring an extra set of wheels, no problem. You can bring a tent. You can bring a table, chairs, tools. It's a little bit more versatile that way. But when you come to break it down to a cost perspective, the rally art's probably got the same amount of money as it cost us to buy the Evo originally. So it's hard to beat from a price to performance standpoint on that. With a lot of the Evo guys taking stuff off, if you want to Evo performance into it, you can pick up a turbo and a manifold for $400. It's pretty hard to beat that way. And then you got a 350 horsepower car, and that's originally how the car was when I got it. It had a Evo X turbo on it and a manifold, and that cracked, and I cheaped out and went with the eBay special tubular and ran that for a year or two, and somehow that held up. And then it just started to snowball from there. Moved into a EFR 7163, and now that's on the wife's car, and trickling down that way.
Okay. So it sounds like you would recommend the Rally Art if somebody just wanted like a budget track car.
Oh, definitely. It does have its downfalls. So like it isn't a light chassis to begin with. Somehow it's 200 pounds lighter than an MR, 100 pounds lighter than a GSR. There's 100 pounds difference between the 5-speed and the SST. But I'm not sure where the rest of the weight comes from, where they've saved it, because if you pull the chassis apart and get down into the depths of it, there's not a lot of different braces and pieces in it. So I'm not sure where the extra weight, where they've hidden it. It might be in the sound deadening or whatnot. I haven't pulled that out of the wife's car, so there might have to be a bit more in there. Overall, yeah, you can start out there, and it's easy to pull 200-300 pounds out of it without trying too hard. So then you're down to 3,100 pounds, and all of a sudden you got a car that you put it on some wheels and tires and some decent brakes, and it's not eating consumables.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I will say, that my car seems to be pretty reasonable on the consumables. Like in 5 years, I've gone through one set of front rotors, which I had bought used, and they were surfaced, and they had been used on another big Time Attack Evo from Southern California. So they had some miles on them. I still have the original rotors on it from that purchase from 5 years ago. I've changed brake pads in the front once, but even then they weren't worn out. I just changed compounds. So, and then tires, I seem to age them out by heat cycles faster than I do to the cords.
And Mitch, we talked about a huge misconception right away about the SST being made of glass. Are there any other misconceptions about the Rally Art platform that a lot of people have?
I think the biggest thing is they think it is just a base. It's a base Lancer, which it is. The chassis is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It came with some nice things from factory. It's got forged pieces or rear trailing arms. The base model's got a stamped piece, and there's some other little things that they've changed. It's got the diff. The diff came the same diff as 8.9. They came stacked in the US and Canada the same way they stacked them before, where you have to restack the plates because it's set up for grandma so it doesn't chatter. But otherwise, yeah, I think people definitely overlook it when it comes to it. I think a lot of it is just the whole Evo clout of just having the name behind it. But if you took the badge off and you cover up the gas tank cover, you can't tell them apart really. They're almost same but different.
Well, walk us through the primary Evo 10, Mitch. What's going on with the build?
Right now, it's sitting outside the shop because the wife's MR is coming off the lift. So I just recently finished swapping some things over that and did some much needed maintenance and a few things. And I probably went a little overboard. I took the subframes out and sandblasted them and Cerakote coated them, and now she's all pretty and everything. But her car, she got my old turbo. Her manifold was cracked like they all crack. So I originally had a MA Performance one to put in, and it took me, I don't know, 2 weeks to get one stud out. It was stuck in the turbo, and I started getting more, like, I remember just sitting there like, oh, geez, what am I going to do? Having a beer. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what? I got a full race manifold sitting on the shelf with a 7670. I'm like, I'll stuff that in my car, and then I will take mine out and put it in hers. I was like, oh, that sounds great. All right, one more try on the stud. Sure enough, the stud comes out. So it must have heard me think. And then I got the manifold, everything back in with the map, and I was like, all right, I guess we're just going to leave it as it is. And sure enough, one of the bolts on the other stud that you leave for the manifold, it ripped the threads off, tightening it up. I was like, oh, that's it. Manifold's going back on Marketplace, and I swapped the turbo over and all that. And then I built a new downpipe for it, 3.5 inch. Yeah, she got a set of Ohlins. Yeah, couple bushings and a few other little things. Now it's ready to come off the lift and start tuning. And then for mine, it'll go in. Transmission needs to come out, rebuild. I keep debating whether or not to put a set of rods and pistons and do the block, but I have other plans future down the road for it. So it's like maybe I'll try and hold off on just keeping it stock block for the time being. So we'll go from there.
And then what about the most serious rally R build? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on under the hood there?
So as it was of last year before the clutch let go, it was a stock block with ARP rod bolts and S2 cams. Otherwise, there's nothing done internally to it. It's got an oversized intake manifold, so it's been ported by hand, and it's got a 65 millimeter throttle body out of the V6 Eclipse. And then your standard bolt-ons to go with that. Intercooler pipes. It was running an ETS 4-inch intercooler, and then for a turbo, it was on an EFR 7163 with the SXE compressor housing. I made a custom intake, and it's got a 3.5-inch custom downpipe in it. And it made about 515 ton wheels, about 165 pounds of torque, but the torque would come from 3,500 to almost redline, and it would start to fade up top. Just the back pressure, little upside down at 8,500 RPM. About 43 pounds of manifold pressure, making 24 pounds of boost, so almost 2 to 1. So she was working pretty hard. So that's part of the reason moving up a turbo size, bigger exhaust housing. So doing the math on EFR's MatchBot, it shouldn't be quite still upside down, about 1.3 to 1 rather than 2 to 1. So it should be a little bit more efficient up top. But the spool and everything I shouldn't lose too much going to the bigger turbo sizing. Otherwise, it's been, I don't want to say it's gutted, because in Max 1 you still need to, which is the SCCA rules for time attack that it runs under now. Or sorry, it runs Max 3 actually. It's a Max 3 car based off engine displacement. But under the Max rules, you have to keep an interior unless you fully cage the car. As much as I would like to have a cage for the safety aspect, the car is not light enough yet for me to move down a tubing size. So once I've reached that, then I will put the cage into it. So the mission's actually just been to take weight out of it. Every winter, it's like, all right, I want to say, last year was I want to take 100 pounds out of it. And I kind of cheated a little bit on that, but the year before it was, okay, let's find another 100 pounds, and another 100 pounds. So this year, it's starting to get a little bare bones on things that I can find. So if I can find 50 pounds out of it, I'd be happy with that, with the added power from the bigger turbo. But reading through old forums and things, it was actually Chet Rickerman's Evo X build that really got me into the whole weight reduction thing. And like he said, it's once you start, you can't really stop, because you start to realize the gains and performance, and you start to feel it, and you're like, oh, okay. So the car now at race weight's sub 3,000 pounds with me in it. So on the scales, I think it's just a hair under 2,800 pounds. So it's starting to get down there. So there's still a little bit more to go, but right now it's running. It had a weird 12 plate rear diff kit in it. I have a Cusco 1.5 weight that I'm going to put in, just to try and help with the mid corner understeer. Just have the back end still transferring a little bit more weight forwards. Try and get it to bite. It's on a stock ECU with Tefra ROM. It's got the EvoScan TCU modifications to it. I don't run excessive after pressure or pressure modifier. I think I'm at like 7 or 8%. Pretty reasonable on that. Biggest thing is just tuning on it. But with the SST, its clamp load is largely based off of the engine's load value that it's giving. So the more so if you can skew your MAF and map calibrations a little bit to read a higher load and tune in those columns. So if you say you're doing 290 load, the ECU will go, okay, you're making more boost and more of that, and the transmission will actually apply more pressure based on its mapping over you just cramming more after pressure into it, because the after pressure is a global pressure adder, so that adds pressure to the shift forks and the valve bodies and the check valves and everything. So ideally, you don't want to have it put too much in there because you can wear things that way. Cramming things into gear a lot harder than it probably was meant to. So that way, it's just applying pressure to the clutch packs. I've done a lot of work on changing things from steel to aluminum. There's been pieces of the chassis that's been removed to save weight. It's been stripped down, but it's still street legal. It still carries the kid. I can put the kid seats back in if I want to. They love it. And yeah, it's still a 4-door family sedan in some regards. Doesn't look like it from the outside. It's more of a kind of GT3 look going on it with the wide body and everything. So
Pretty sick pulling up to pick the kids up.
they love it, especially my little one, Tom. He gets excited when he hears it. He knows Daddy's here. Yeah. Now he runs around and tells everybody that Daddy has Evo. Daddy has Evo. He's 2 now, so his favorite toy is this little blue Evo I bought at Canadian Tire. It was supposed to be for my daughter years ago, but she was like, man, whatever, cars. But he got a hold of it and he was like, my car, my race car. He's definitely probably going to follow in Daddy's steps as much as Mom probably doesn't want him to.
Well, what do you say, Mitch, has been the modification that has made the biggest difference on track? I know we talked a lot about weight reduction. Would you say it was that or maybe something else?
In terms of handling, I'd have to say it was the center diff controller. That was back to back from one track day and then 10 days back, same conditions, same tires. It was 1.5 seconds on a 72-second track. So that was probably the night and day. And then the other big one, like any other car will always take, is more power. So from one day to the next, going from pump fuel to E85 was probably worth another 1.5 seconds or so. And then tires, of course. You can't, if you got the best tires, whatever you're allowed to run wise, you're always going to find grip and time.
Well, would you say it was an upgrade that kind of gave you not as good a improvement as you were hoping for as much as you paid for it?
It's hard to say because a lot of my parts that I buy for the car are actually used parts. The least value, I know what it is. I went on a big 2 years ago on a big mission to rebuild the fuel system. I wanted to get rid of the catch cam was my goal and have it inside the tank or figure out a system to do so. Because it had a radium catch can at the time, and it's a big beefy. I think the whole thing weighs deep. So I was like, well, if I can cut that, that's 4 pounds. So I went and machined a new billet tank cover and stuck this filter inside there, and it's got a 535 Walbrook pump, and it's like, okay, we'll use a big Holley hydro mat because they showed you all these things online where only a little corner touches fuel, it'll still pick it up and all that. I'll still be able to run like a quarter tank for a session, go out there and all that. Yeah, first day out, it's fuel starving again, right from the get-go. It was actually to the point where it was so bad that I had to fill the tank to the brim. I'd get 3 laps and it would be still 5/8 or 7/8 of a tank. It would still fuel surge. It was insane. I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. So went in a surge tank to fix that. So it's back to the two pump system, but that it is what it is. I was originally just going to stuff the radium system back in, but I had already put it in the wife's car as a hand-me-down. So I had to come up with something different. So now it's got a 2.5 liter surge tank with a single pump, and all those problems went away. So like when I said I kind of cheated last year with the 100 pounds weight reduction, 76 of it was in fuel. I didn't have to run the car from the top, right? I can run it with 10, 15 liters in the tank and not have any issues.
Have you found kind of an unexpected weak point in either one of these platforms?
The biggest weak point is the understeer mid corner. They turn in great. Once you're on the power, the exit is phenomenal with the all-wheel drive. It's really just the front end pushing. Mid corner is probably the hardest part to try and dial out of it. And there's lots of ways to go about trying to correct it, but it's hard to get it to still do it with the whole way the chassis is, with the engine being over the front axle so far. It's just the sheer amount of weight, especially in the low speed corners. It's probably the hardest part to get that rotation. I know a lot of guys run really, really stiff rear springs, but then you're giving up overall traction elsewhere. And then there's roll center correction. You can only go so far. Like, I could probably lower the front of the car an inch and a half to make it, to change the rake. Because the front end on my car is actually probably higher than what the rear is. But trying to work with the way that Mitsubishi did the McPherson strut, trying to keep the roll center high enough to the center of gravity so you're not getting acceptable, because a lot of guys slam the car. I know my buddy Danny, he's on SVC Knuckles, and he's got his car, it's probably about, I think we worked out, it's about an inch or inch and a quarter lower than my car is, and he's fighting a roll, and it's like you can only go so stiff on the front sway bars, and so it's always a give and take. Vehicle dynamics get really complicated really fast, because a little change can snowball into other things, and you can start to find yourself chasing your tail. The weird thing that I've noticed with my car is that my local track, turn 2 is this long, almost double apex corner where you come in hard, brake, and then you're in this kind of coast zone while you're waiting for the front end to like hook up and continue to turn. And I don't know what made me think about it. I was like, well, maybe if I get on the power a little bit earlier and let the diff controller do its work. And kind of a weird way to drive, because you don't drive like a rear wheel drive car or like in the sim or anything like that the same way. Like, you need to be on partial throttle to get the car to rotate, and then once it's starting to rotate, you can get on it, and once you figure it out, you can find some serious lap time once you get it in. But it's not intuitive to drive it that way. It doesn't seem right, because you see any other car and you're like, this will bite me. Like, I know a couple of guys with the GR Supras, they're like, you are on the gas so early, like, how? I'm like, well, it's the all-wheel drive, and the other part is I'm wanting the rear end to come around to reduce its traction to get it to go. But once you nail it, you feel like you're just the king once you get it set up and rotating. But it's not the easiest thing to do, lap in, lap out. But like with seat time, that comes.
It's one of those things, huh?
Yeah, just one of those things. But that's probably the biggest downfall with the overall chassis, is trying to dial out some of the understeer. Like the wife's car, I think it's 65-35 weight distribution, and mine's closer to I think it's 58-42 now, which it's helping. So it's getting there, but it's just a matter of getting that last little bit. And then it's hard to do back-to-back testing days between cost and time. So a lot of times I just have a notebook that I've written down things of what I've changed and how it felt, and then I'll change something at the shop over the next week or two and go back. But it's not always apples to apples. So sometimes you're kind of chasing your tail, you're chasing track conditions, you're chasing tires, and not being like, I can't afford a new set of stickers every time I go out. So usually run the tires till they're dead, then find the next greatest one from there.
Well, Mitch, earlier you talked about SCCA and the class you race in. Is that the same? Do you race some of the other cars in different classes? I know you talked about maybe doing rally with the other one.
No, I raced them all in the same class, just based on, because of like the wife's car would, under SCCA rules, would fit under tuner. I think it would. No, it's got the turbo now, so it would be a max car because it's been changed. So they all would fall underneath the max class because they're not the stock turbo. But the max, there is a class above unlimited, but that's a whole nother can of worms and a whole nother, like, if you can think of what you want to do, it's probably allowed. But with this, there's kind of like a cost limit. The plan is to actually go to global time attacks at the Ridge this year. I've been wanting to 2 years. I haven't been able to make it happen between the family and things. The 1 year I was thinking about going, I was like, I probably won't be competitive. And a buddy of mine's, Ryan, he's been taking his super down there, getting podiums. I'm like, well, I can't be that far off if that's the case. But the only issue is the rule sets don't quite 100% match up. There's a few things you're allowed to do in max class that you're not allowed to do in the street class. So I'd be limited to a 265 tire, which wouldn't transfer over just changing tires. So I'd have to do some testing before to try and maximize the tire, right? Because the tire is the only thing that you really contact the ground to. So it's all about optimizing that tire patch. So it would take some testing, but it's definitely a thing. It ran 265 tires before I finished off the wide body and got the big wheels and everything, big wide wheels. So I do have some notes on how to set it up. It's just a matter of finding the time and doing it.
And then we talked about this early on, Mitch, but you said that being an athlete is kind of what drew you to motorsports. What is it that drew you to time attack style racing over maybe other forms of motorsports?
Like, I think the ultimate is still wheel to wheel. Like let's be honest, there's nothing better than going door to door with another guy, going into a corner who can brake later, and pushing yourself that way. But that involves another person that you need to trust, right? So then, trying to be more cost effective, qualifying is a big part of racing, and time attack is just qualifying. If you see it in its basic form, it's one lap. That's all that matters. So I think that was the biggest push, was the fact that I could be out on track, still competitive, and you're still racing people, just not in the same sense of being door to door with them.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like going back to that Gran Turismo. It's kind of like the ghost car.
Yeah, exactly. The ghost car is never going to take you out. You're about whether or not he's going to turn in or if he sees you. And with like everything with the fourth Evo, I guess if it ever comes to fruition, it'd probably become a endurance car. So that'll be plenty of door to door action, and it's already hit a ditch, so I'm not going to be really too upset if someone bumps into me when we're going at it.
Well, Mitch, what's your overall approach to improving lap times? We hear on here a lot about, either looking at data or, just kind of feeling from the seat of your pants of what changes need to be made. But where do you kind of lean towards?
It has to be towards the data on my point. Because sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm pushing at all, and I go faster. You're like, what is going on? And it's the same thing in the sim. Like, if I'm pushing for a lap time in the sim, you're making little mistakes here and there. It's never perfect, right? Like, sometimes it's better to like that 1% forward, nail everything. And it's hard to do that when you're trying to go for a time or trying to beat a personal best is the biggest thing. I think the data really shows where you're improving and how much. Sometimes you won't see it or feel it from left to left. You won't realize, oh, okay, if I use third gear here, I'm not getting as much engine braking, and I'm carrying more minimum corner speed entry into it, or vice versa. Or I use second gear, I do get the rotation out of the car, and then you're carrying that speed down the straight. And it's all about really finding your braking points, which comes with practice and understanding, and how far you can push the car into the corner and still get it to rotate out. Because even though sometimes you're faster, actually 90% of the time, your lap's going to be faster if you're more conservative going into the corner and maximizing the exit onto the straight. Every mile an hour you carry the corner is 1.5 feet further down the straight every second for the length of that straight. So you got 8 seconds straight, you're 11.5 feet ahead of where you would be if you carried 1 mile an hour. So if you can get a 4 mile an hour difference, you're 3 car lengths ahead by the next straight. I think a lot of people try to really push the braking zones, and it causes them to create mistakes into the corner or not quite nail the line or the acceleration point, and it costs them down the straights. I think people get caught up in the data sometimes too far. They're looking at little too small of a piece of the track. I know a lot of the data loggers they break it down into like little tiny subsections. Like I think Solo Storm is the big one that we use up here, local company that developed it, but it breaks the track down into, like our local track, it's only 9 corners, but it breaks it down into, I think it's 23 sections. So people get up, I'm 2/10 faster in the braking because I braked later. Okay, cool, but you were like 5 seconds or almost half a second slower down the next straight because your minimum quarter speed dropped so much, right? You miss the exit. Now, if you go slow, don't focus so hard on the braking and really get the apex and the exit, that's where you're going to maximize your time. For me, some of my fast laps, I don't feel like I'm pushing, because I find if I really push the car, I am making mistakes. There's other times where I've been able to really push and it feels like I'm on the verge of out of control almost. And it's been quick, but it comes down to driver style. But I've had both instances where I'm like not pushing and it's quick, and then where I'm really trying and it's been quick. So it's been, and I'm sure if I were to overlay the 2 laps back to back, some will be faster in some areas and some won't be in others. And it's really just trying to figure out those 2 meeting points to actually get the ultimate lap time out of the car.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by the Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo Club. The Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo Club is a club of 2008 and up Lancer owners who have or are interested in turbocharging their Lancers. There's also Ralliart and Evo owners as well. The Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo Club is a goldmine of technical knowledge, helpful resources, and expert information for safely and successfully adding a turbocharger to your Lancer. It is without a doubt one of the coolest and largest Facebook Mitsubishi communities with nearly 6,000 members from all over the planet. They share builds, time slips, dyno sheets, and there's even a classified group for you to find parts for your Lancer. Join the club on Facebook at Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo Club and give them a follow on Instagram. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, Mitch. When you're looking at data, are you using like those draggy lap timers, or are you looking at feedback? What all are you doing to improve your laps?
So now the car has gotten to the point where it's almost, I want to say, to like a GT3 level for like information. I got suspension geometry and travel, tire temperature sensors, brake sensors, or brake temp sensors, and then all the engine data, G-force, all that. And that's all wired into the car now through a Race Logic box. But before, I was using just your standard GPS taped, and it was literally taped to the dash to log just the basics. And I think just the basics for a lot of people is enough. Just to something to go by, where your braking points are, how much lateral force you're making, your minimum corner speeds, and just overall lap time and sector time.
The thing that I like to ask the circuit guys is how much of time attack is driving versus the setup of the car? Where's the ratio that gives you the best lap times?
It's probably 80-20, 80% driver. Like there is no substitute for seat time. I know listening to the podcast, everybody says the same thing. It all comes down to seat time. Like none of us are Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton. If we were, we'd be an F1. So there's always time left on the table, and it's your fault. And like where you're going to push it. Like how big are your balls? How far are you willing to go? How are you willing to take that corner at 160 miles an hour and not lift? Right. That's usually like the biggest lap time. Isn't you can find little bits here and there, but once you get the car to a certain point, there's only so much power you can put down to the ground. There's only so much power you can push for so long. A lot of it comes down to heat management. So there's almost like a ceiling there. There's always more lap time to be found from the driver. And it's little things can add up. You find a half a tenth in every corner for 10 corners, right? That's 2.5, or that's a quarter second. So, and in time attack, that can be the difference between first and eighth, depending on the costs.
So, Mitch, which track would you say has challenged you the most?
Challenge-wise, either the Ridge in Sheldon, Washington, or Area 27 in the Okanagan of the State. They're both big circuits, faster speeds, and frankly, I haven't been to them as much as I'd like, just to get the experience and just the track time. Like my local track Mission, it's 2.3 kilometers, like a mile and a half kind of thing. It's small, it's tight, but I know the thing like the back of my hand, right? So it's just a matter of getting time on the circuit. There's another local track that's on the island, which is kind of a pain to get to. You got to take a ferry, and it's a bit of a mission to get over there, but it's similar to Mission, but longer, and it's tight and windy. And like my car really does perform there, because with a lot of the low speed corners and the all-wheel drive, you can really use the power early. it's just, yeah, those would be the two tracks that have challenged me the most so far.
From your personal perspective, what changes when you jump from an Evo to a rally art or vice versa?
Not a whole bunch, to be honest. I think the biggest thing for me to change is in the wife's car, right foot brake, and in my car, I dual pedal. I broke my leg riding mountain bikes in 2012, and after a day of tracking, my knee hurt because they didn't put my leg back together straight. So my solution was to put a second brake pedal in the car. It's offset from the other one. There's space works. There's no clutch. It's offset so both pedals, throttle and brake, are equal. So it's more of a formula setup. That's probably the biggest change going between the two.
And then would you say that your driving style changes between the two, or is it pretty much the same because the platforms are so similar?
No, the only thing I would say changes between the two is my risk of and caution of crashing. I put mine in the wall, the wife's going to be upset. I put hers in the wall, she's really going to be upset.
Yeah, no good. Wouldn't want to come home to that.
Well, she'd have to come and pick me up because I probably would have driven there in it. Then I'm really all the way home.
No kid. Have to sit in the back.
Yeah, at least the kids will be nice to me.
Mitch, would you say that one car is more forgiving than the other when it comes to racing?
Yeah, the Evo, I would say it's not as far down the race car path as mine. So it's definitely a little more forgiving. It's a little softer in suspension. It's not as quite track alignment focused. It still has to do some daily duties once in a while. So it's definitely a little bit more forgiving. And with mine, I've been trying to move the rear brake bias back more and more with pad compounds and rotor going up on rotor sizes in the back. Try and help with the trail braking and rotation. So with hers, it's definitely a lot more stable under braking. It's easier to drive near its limit than it is mine at its limit.
Well, Mitch, would you say that one car over the other feels more rewarding when you really hit a perfect lap?
Yeah, I would definitely say nailing a lap in the rally arts feels better than nailing a lap in the Evo. It's multiple seconds faster. And it's more on the limit. Feels more on the limit. The car is set up to go. The other one goes. It's not the same. I don't know what it is about my car, but there is something like when you do finally nail that lap. I remember last year, finally kind of got it all together. Got it on its 315s and the 18 by 12 wheels. And it was the first event of this season. It's usually a couple of the Supras go out first because we try to line it up fastest to slowest for your run group. So that way everybody kind of can fit in their hot laps without running into traffic. Trying to keep the amount of passing down. And I remember lining up and just kind of following them around. And I was like, oh, okay, this is working out well. And then I set a personal best. It wasn't by a whole ton. I've been out earlier the year on a 295 Hoosier A7, but on pump gas. And then once I got there, I was on E85 with the fresh 200 tread wears. So the next session I went out first. They're like, oh, you can go first. You were like just chasing us around the whole time. And then I dropped multiple seconds off of it. I remember my goal always was to get a sub 110 at Mission. That was the goal. And I came in and it was a 108.7. I was like, oh, I don't know where that came from, but it was really unexpected. And then we're looking through the log books there, and it made it the fastest 200 treadwear lap record at the time. Okay, that's pretty cool. Like at the moment, it didn't really hit me. It wasn't until I was like halfway home, driving back. Actually, I might have been on the way to work after. I was like, oh, like I didn't really realize what I had built and created and done. I was like, it's the fastest 200 treadwear tire car around that track. I was like, that doesn't really make sense to me because like it's a 4-door family car, but like we got Porsches and GT2 RSs and all this coming out. I was like, that's kind of insane. Maybe I really should put a cage in this thing.
Might be time.
It's coming. I don't think it'll happen this year. It'll probably be next winter. I gotta take the roof off of it anyway. It's been dented in by some ice falling off the house one winter when it's been outside.
Well, Mitch, I feel like I already know what car you're going to say because when you talk about it, it sounds like it's more of the race car. Is there one car where you instantly get in the zone when you strap in behind the steering wheel?
It's probably not the car you think it is. It'd be the wife's Evo.
Wow. Okay.
In my car, it's a little bit too far down the race car path to be to drive it around. Like I drive it around and I'll take it to work sometimes, but I'm not taking it downtown or anything like that. It's big wing splitter. It's a little bit on the loud side. But no, it's definitely the Evo, I'd say, when you hop in that. And it's really weird. When I'm in the Evo, guys will try and race you on the street. I don't know what it is. It's just maybe it's the badge on the back. And they'll try and race it all the time. But when I'm in my car, nobody wants to race it. Like they'll pull off the edge and you're like, they'll look at you and you'll just see them kind of fall behind. You're like, okay, like I'm not expecting that because you would think, oh, guys are driving a race car. I'm going to race that in my AMG, whatever I'm driving. But nope, they don't want anything to do with it. It's kind of weird.
Smoke.
So they would probably get it. Well, I'm not going to say it's fast in a straight line. It's got a lot of aero on it, and it's not pushing huge power by any stretch. It's light for what it is, but it's not. It wasn't built for straight line racing. That's for sure. Now we add a corner to the equation, then we're on to another game.
Mitch, what's been the one most ridiculous part that has failed that you were just kind of like, oh, really? Come on.
The turbo wastegate actuator. But I do have to give a shout out to Turbo Smart USA on this one. I bought the EFR 7163. It came with an aftermarket Turbo Smart wastegate on it. Ran that, and originally the little tiny bronze bushing on the base was worn. And I reached out. I was like, hey, can I buy this part? Like, I would like to replace it because I'm putting the car together, and I would like to freshen it up because I'm putting it back together. And I can't remember his name. It'll come to me probably. I think his name is Josh too. But he was like, yeah, no problem. I'll just send you one. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't buy the part new. I'm second owner. They just sent me the piece. Okay, that's cool. Then the next year, I was down at Sheldon at the Ridge, and the wastegate actuator broke in the first. It snapped the rod right at the end of the threads, so missed a couple sessions. But local shop down the street tack welded it back together, and it held enough for the event. But I reached out and was like, hey, can I get a replacement rod? Can I buy one? And they were like, no, we're just going to send you a whole wastegate. I went, okay, cool. Like I'm not expecting this at all, but thank you. I ended up breaking another one this last summer at Area 27. Okay. And the same thing, I messaged them and said, hey, I broke another piece. Can I just buy the rod? And they're like, no. And they just sent me like 6 of them. They're like, here you go. Like, you're obviously pushing it. Here's a couple spare rods. So now I have the 2 wastegates that I can take back and forth. But I'm moving on, I have to say, from there. I've moved on to an electric actuator. So that'll be going in when I rebuild the rest of it. Electric wastegate actuator. So Mitsubishi makes a bunch, and full race kit. I'll be transferring over to more control that way. Just because the back pressure up top, even if you're running 100% wastegate duty cycle, you can't push it any farther. Like on the 7163, it would start to fit. I'd be asking for 28 pounds, and it would fade to 24.5, 25 pounds after about 7,000 RPM. It just wouldn't be able to hold the back pressure. It would overcome the spring. And then with the electric wastegate actuator, I should be able to hold it shut. If I want that amount of wastegate, it will hold it at that amount of gate. And with the turbo speed gauge, I still have 25, 30,000 RPM of turbo speed available within the limits of it. So that was that purchase decision there. But now moving to the 7670, still going to put it in.
Mitch, you talked about parts kind of start on your car and then trickle their way down. Have you ever had to steal parts off one car to put them on another to make it to an event?
Yes, I've stolen my wife's wheels and tires before. Yeah, And then I've also had to steal a boost coupler once. They were both at the time they were on stock turbos, Evo X turbos, and melted one when I went to the tubular manifold. I was in the midst of tuning it before an event, and yeah, it wasn't going to show up in time, so I stole hers and off we went. And then I ran her tires for almost a whole season, and her car was on the winter tires that we have for it for a while, and then she got them back later on. But that's when I was riding the 265. So it was actually Pilot Sport Mission 4S's. I think that's a tire that gets slept on a lot. It may not be the most track tire, but for a daily Evo, like you cannot go wrong with that tire.
Really?
As long as you're not driving in snow. In the wet, phenomenal. Does track duty. On the streets, I can only imagine. Yeah, on the streets, it's probably hands down my favorite tire to drive on the street. It's quiet, it's comfortable, it grips, it goes, and it lasts. It's got a 50,000 kilometer tread warranty. What other tire in that performance class has something like that?
Well, kind of on the same subject, Mitch. Have you ever what's been the most last minute repair that you've had to make before an event?
Well, there's been plenty. I think the biggest one was actually the boost actuator. Rods came in, I put it in, and I meant to go out, like I put it in the day before the event, and I meant to go out. Life got in the way. I just drove it to the track, and on the way to the track, you'd step on it, and the gauges would read like 40 and go past whatever they read. It's like, I'm like, this isn't right. I can't be building 40 pounds of boost. Like, I'm gonna be seeing some windows. So I remember like with the track, like taking out the preload as far as it would go, and it would still do it, and then dumping the wastegate duty cycle to 0, and it would kind of spool to like 28. And I was like, okay, I've tuned in that area. Like it'll be fine. It's a little more than I like at like peak boost, peak torque, because I was already nearing the limit of what the trans would hold. And then so I went to the track, ran a personal best. But if you're looking through the data, you can see where like coming onto throttle, where the extra torque is pulling the acceleration. Like you can see the acceleration difference. So that's probably where a lot of the time came from. And sure enough, last session, last everything, just nope. We don't have even gears or odd gears. Sorry, yeah, the C1 clutch pack. She let go. Not enough to cripple the car. I still drove it to work, which was an hour and a half away, and drove it home the next morning. She didn't like it, but she made it home. It's never left me stranded somewhere.
That's good.
The only other big one I've had is the return line on the power steering. So there's 2 little lines that go on the rack from the outsides to transfer fluid from the other side of the pistons. And the longer of the 2 developed a small crack underneath the fitting, and it was dumping out power steering fluid. And I remember taking it apart and finding, and it's just the smallest little hairline crack. I still have the little end fitting for it, but it's got a special bend to it. Self-sealing, it's a B-tube bend, and of course no one has the proper fittings nearby the track to do this, right? So I remember grabbing a brake flaring tool and like kind of Mickey Mousing it and getting it kind of half together, and got the bottom flat like it's supposed to be, but it still had the flare taper for the brake line. I just remember stuffing it in and be like, well, the fitting will, if it goes down, it will crush it too, so it will make the fitting, and it's actually, I haven't touched it since. I got kind of lucky on that one. My millwright experience, that's what I do for a living.
Okay.
And just kind of kicked in, and I was able to fix it without fixing it the right way, I guess. But if you were to take that fitting off, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But I lost half a day at a track I hadn't been to before, and then one thing led to another. I broke another wastegate actuator, and at first I thought I had fouled some plugs because it just wouldn't run right. And then I changed spark plugs, but they weren't smaller. They were gapped to factory. So when I went back out and finally kind of figured everything out in the parking lot or the paddock, it would break up after 16 pounds of boost. It would just crackle and pop. And I was like, okay, we'll just drive around at half throttle. Remember after the event, one of the guys asked me, he's like, are you taking corner 2 flat? And I was like, yes, kind of. He's like, everybody has to brake and slow down. He's like, you come in and it's just, and he's like, you never lift. I was like, well, I'm only doing 160 kilometers an hour. I was like, I'm half throttling it, and the car will do the corner at 160. So there's no need to slow down. He's like, well, why don't you make more power? I explained everything to him. He's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. I was like, big aero, no power. You just kind of drive around the fast corners as fast as it goes.
Sometimes it's all you need.
Yeah, no, but with full power, it'd be probably entry in that corner be close to 260, 240 for sure. 240, 260 kilometers an hour. What's that? 140, 150 miles an hour. Corner's about 100 miles an hour in most well set up cars. GT3, yeah, probably about 100 miles an hour for corner 2 at area 27.
Well, Mitch, has one car become kind of your favorite unexpectedly?
It's, yeah, well, like the wife's Evo, its nickname is Eva. It's kind of the firstborn and the first love and the first passion, and then like that's the one car like I try to keep pristine as much as I can without getting too deep into it. Like there is going to be a limit of like what I'm allowed to change on it. It has to pass the wife test. Like the wife can't notice that I changed it, kind of thing. So that one's holds that's probably the one I'd have a hardest time letting go of. And that comes back to just it's an Evo. It's not a rally art. Rally arts you can find all the time. Evos and Evos. Let's not kid ourselves. It's still an Evo at the end of the day. That one would probably be the hardest one, or the one and with it being a little bit more road friendly, it's the one that you can hop into a little more often.
Well, what's the goals for the Evo 10s moving forward?
Well, I think the wife's is just to have it set up, all finished, tuned, and just you can turnkey drive it, and then not have to change anything on it to go to the track if you want to. Like it's not going to be a full-on track car because that's not what it's really destined to be. It still needs to have street manners. So that's the goal with that one. It'll, on a conservative unit, it'll probably make 450, 465 horsepower. And then on pump, it'll make 400 all day with the EFR 71. And then with mine, I don't want to say I don't mind if these break. I don't want them to, but I'm willing to push the limits more on that one. So that one it seems to be slowly transitioning more and more towards just the track. Like even shopping for suspensions, like, oh, they're like, how much street manners do you want? It's like, none. Lap time. It's the only thing that matters in that one. The faster it can go around the track, the better.
And then same question, but for the rally arts.
Well, the other one doesn't run, hasn't moved. It literally came in on a trailer, and it hasn't moved since. So I think that one, I've told my dad that I'm going to put that one together for him on one condition. He has to come to the track with me. So it's almost like a payback for all the times that he had to put in for when we raced motocross and things like that. I remember as a kid always having to work on my bike and like didn't want to and had to tune the brakes and this and that and wash it and all that. And I remember him telling me like, you're not a factory rider, you gotta earn your keep or whatever, right? And I remember when I turned pro riding mountain bikes, Fox suspension sent me a bunch of suspension parts, and on it said Mitsubishi factory rider, and I remember like cutting it out and giving it to him, like, see, I've made it. So I think it'll be because he's been coming out to all the local events, and he'll do lap timing, and he'll peek through some of the data and stuff like that, and tire time and pressures and stuff like that, and lend a hand when need be. So been showing interest, so I think it's something that hopefully we can share together, and he can drive in his rally art, and I'll have mine. One's white, one's black. So yin and yang, and go from there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, beat me to it, yin and yang.
Yeah, and he's starting to get up there. He's turning. He'll be turning 70 this fall, but he's still racing motocross and racing a class below his age at the old timers, and I think he took the overall win for his class at the last one. So he's still pushing himself that way. So I think it'll be good with that. I think I should try and teach him with age comes a cage. So we'll put him in the steel box and tell him it's the same thing, just no jumps.
Keep all four wheels on the ground.
Ideally. Sometimes it doesn't always happen with the curbs, but ideally.
Well, do you have any big changes to any of the cars coming up that you want to talk about?
No, like I've said, Life's just got its big update. It's coming off the lift, hopefully in the next week or two. Once I can find some time just to get the tune sorted and get it moving out. And then mine's going on the lift, so there'll be some definite changes there. So it's going to a bigger turbo. I have a new rear diff to put in. Got a few things to remove that I've for some weight savings. And then the wife bought me another set of rims this year, so new wheels and tires for that. Same set as before, but it's good to have spares. And then just the big thing will be the front aero package, I think. It's front aero limited. It's hard to make big aero on a street car chassis. But I think with that, I want to remove a lot of the radiator core supports and tilt the radiator, and then properly duct it out the hood. Like it has the ducting and everything already, just in the factory location. I think optimizing that and then closing up a lot of the gaps that are up front will help a lot.
Well, I know you talked about going to some tracks and trying to compete in some of the national events. Are there any tracks or events that are still on your bucket list?
Yes. It just depends on how big that bucket list and how much I'm allowed to spend. I would love to go to Laguna Seca. I've been there a bunch riding bikes for the Sea Otter Classic, but I've never had a chance to go around on the track. So that's on the bucket list. Sonoma would be on there. And then there's a few other tracks back east that I like. Coda's up there, but it's not like I have to. Watkins Glen would be on there. And then if I had like an endless budget, I would just put the car in a container and take it to the Nürburgring. Run the Schleif all day, every day on a private track day. But that would be the dream. That's the one track if I'm on the sim, one track I go to almost every time. If you're scrolling through the open lobbies, oh yep, Schleif, yep, let's drive that.
Well, Mitch, long term, what does this fleet look like to you?
All rolling. Time attack car, attacking. The wife's car, daily track, able car. My dad daily driving the other rally art, bringing it out to the track, and then me and the buddies tinkering and building up the other one as an endurance car.
Yeah. It doesn't even sound that long term. It sounds like very doable.
Yeah, that's what I said about the wife's car going on the lift last June, and it's almost been a year. And I said it's going to be 6 weeks, and it's just crazy how with life with two little ones and trying to juggle the family and work and everything, it doesn't help to lift. When the car lift, things scope creep real hard sometimes. And just you're like, oh, it's already apart. I might as well do this. Oh, I might as well do this too, and it just starts to compound sometimes.
I do a lot of while I'm in here, I might as well upgrade this.
Well, exactly. And then you're waiting on a part to put that part back together, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm there. It's already that had to come out, so like it's not that much more. Yeah, like I had the subframes out. I was like, well, it's not that much more to take the transfer case out. It's only 6 bolts. Pull the drive shaft diff and lube the splines. And well, the diff's already out of the car. I might as well pop the cover off. Take a look inside, make sure it's all healthy. Oh, I already got the diff apart. I might as well drill out the bolt holes into the M8 to put M10s in because it is better. Okay, well, I could really just take the diff that was in my car out of it and put it in yours, and now we're pulling another diff to change something to go forward. It scope creeps hard sometimes, and the farther you get into it, the more and longer it takes.
Yeah, a dangerous rabbit hole.
Yes, especially when you're able-bodied and you have the tools and the knowledge to do so. It's just I'm learning more and more why. When I've talked to people like, oh, I've been building this Ford Mustang 67 for 20 years, and you're like, remember being a kid, like, how the hell does this take you 20 years? I'm starting to understand. You have the family, the wife, other commitments. Yep, I understand how it takes you 20 years to get to this point.
Priorities change really fast.
They do.
Well, Mitch, where can people find and follow you on social media to so they can check out some of these cars you got in your fleet?
All the major social media outlets, all under the same name, Mitch Chibi. One word, no space. Facebook, Instagram are probably my main two. And then on Facebook, on the forums, I post a lot under Mitch Terrence. Just because Facebook now won't allow me to change my name back without verifying my ID. So back when Facebook was first being Facebook, they limited the number of friend requests you could have to 1,000. And this was before Facebook pages. So then I changed my last name to try and keep it more for friends and family. And then now it won't change it back. So now on the forums, I go under my middle name, Terrence.
And then lastly, Mitch, at the end, I always give people a chance to give a thanks or a shout out to anybody who's helped them get the cars where they are, get themselves where they are in life. Is there anybody that you want to give a thanks or a shout out to?
Yeah, there's a few people. The first person is my wife for allowing me to even be allowed to head down any of these roads and not fight me too much on a lot of the decisions. She's been a big help in that part, especially with. Well, I can almost blame her. It was her fault. She said we needed a race car. So, but I'll leave her be there. So I love her internally for that. Chet Rickerman, he originally tuned the car when I first got the Rally Art. I didn't have a knowledge to do so, and I'm not going to lie. Every time he sent me a revision, I broke down exactly what he was doing through the AP software from Cobb. Cobb was originally on Cobb. It's on standalone now, but I didn't know any better at the time. And so I learned a lot from him in his forum posts. I gotta give a big shout out to Danny Stark. It seems like daily we message each other back and forth about setup. So it seems we're probably one of two of maybe three guys on the West Coast that are pushing the Evo 10s on track, it seems, these days. So he's been a big resource that way. Gotta thank TurboSmart again for just no questions asked, fixing their parts. And yeah, I gotta thank my dad for he originally lent me the money for the Rally Art. I paid him back right away after, but without him I wouldn't have had it. And yeah, I'd say that's probably about it.
Okay. Well, Mitch, thank you so much for the time to come on here and sharing your story. I really enjoyed it. I hope others will as well. And I wish you the best of luck.
Yes, thank you, and maybe see some of you guys out on track one day.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.